This next shot is an establishing shot in Naboo. Now, it's a very interesting shot in the sense that we didn't want to show Naboo Seed City the same way that we had shown it on episode 1. So this shot took about 4 or 5 months to do.
And at Naboo, I wanted to again establish Naboo and remind us where we are in the larger context. And I also wanted to set up in this little scene with Anakin and Padme that these are all elected officials and that they have a term of office, and she had a term of office, and even though the people wanted her to stay, she didn't stay. This is in contrast to Palpatine, who also has a term of office, but has managed to stay because of one crisis or another. And this film, even gets more power. It also begins to establish that she normally would have retired and probably gone off and had kids at the after becoming queen, but that she'd been pressed back into service, that it wasn't really her choice. She was asked to serve, and so she did.
They're at a palace just outside of Naples. We shot there both on episode 1 and episode 2. One of our favorite actors is a guy named Oliver Ford Davis. Unfortunately, at that particular time, he was shooting another film, and he was also in a play. This shot was actually shot 9 months after he completed the film on a blue screen stage, and we comped him into the whole action because we wanted him to be there. But him standing up and walking across was done in a blue screen stage months later. I sent a production assistant down to measure the actual depth of the stairs, and we recreated blue screen stairs on the stage, which allowed him to be able to actually walk and finish the sequence and take his first step on the stairs.
It's settled then.
People travel through space long distances, and now we know. They just use hyperdrive.
The plan was that George wanted him to have a small ship, but then there was a discussion of whether that small ship could actually go at, supersonic, or faster than supersonic.
Yeah,
They could travel at
speeds.
light speed. So we added that extra drive on top of it.
And then we're right into Camino, and this is the first time that we see the city on stilts on top of the water.
It's a place of great sound contrasts. Outside of Topeka City is a raging storm in the sky and at sea, which is, of course, a sound editor's delight. City. It is very quiet and very muted.
And we're introduced for the first time to Tanwi. Kaminoans were special to us. We're not sure as an audience whether these are good characters or bad characters. There's a serene quality to them that I wanted to get into the performance that started off in how George directed the voice actors. And I wanted to carry that on into, from what I took from the design. See how she walks in. We were paying attention to fashion models. We were thinking about Tai Chi. See how the movement of the arms are fluid, how the hands pass through. And then you'll always see when they come to a stop, there's a little extra flourish in their hands and their movement. It's fluid, and yet it's realistic. And because the way the clothing works so successfully, as with all of the digital characters, I'm always looking for live action reference. Live action moments for me out of classic films, out of moments that I've seen before. And it's amazing. I come back to Alec Guinness and I look at how he interacted as an actor, as a character on the screen with other actors. There's a simplicity to the way that he performed. Between Lamassu, this character, and Ewan McGregor, the subtle things that the animator brought to the hand gestures. There's going to be a moment here when it brushes his knee, and he hears the news of Sifo Dyas dying. It brushes his knee, which would ask for when we're setting the scenes up, but it's an extra level of acting and realism that an animator would bring to it. So in this case, Sean Curran just felt that it felt realistic for the character to do it then, and I agreed with him.
Secluded little lake retreat, obviously designed for the ultimate in romantic environment. We're going to have and Padme fall in love. I wanted something, just ultra lush, ultra romantic, and fell upon this particular setting in Lake Como when I was on vacation, and was actually in the process of writing the script and just said, well, this is it, this is the place.
There was the possibility of some nice romantic chemistry developing between Anakin and Padme on the balcony overlooking the lake. And when the scene was cut together, there was a moment where Anakin moved his hand from the railing and put it on her bare back and actually made physical contact. Although he hadn't done it that way, it would have felt more natural had he touched her hand first before putting his hand on her back. And so ILM very cleverly filmed a hand doing the appropriate action at the right camera angle, and they were able to rotoscope that hand, essentially attach it to Anakin's wrist such that he touched her hand first and then her back.
When he starts touching her back and touching her arm and she doesn't really respond and say, take your hands off me, it signals to him that possibly he can make a move. It's something I wanted to do without a lot of talking about. I wanted to be one of those kind of magical moments.
Scenes that I just felt sorry for Ewan McGregor. He showed up one day and he was put into a completely blue room. There was nothing there whatsoever. We rehearsed the scene with the two voice actors, so they would be walking along in the blue room with him, and so that he could figure out how fast should he be walking and what is he looking at and what would be at the windows that weren't really there on the day.
Oh yes, it's essential.
Working on this script that I decided to make Boba the son of the original clone. Before he was just another clone who was, for whatever reason, had sort of broken loose from the stormtroopers. I didn't really go into detail at that point, even in my mind or in the backstory about any more of it other than that they were connected. But early on, the stormtroopers were meant to be clones. In turning and making Boba the son, it adds more character ultimately to Jango, because I wanted to create a villain in this one that had a little bit of heart, had a little bit of sentimentality to him. It wasn't just Darth Maul all evil. So this gave me the opportunity to do that, and at the same time kind of explore the idea of where Boba Fett came from. Started out as a tiny sort of side character, and it's now grown into something much larger.
There's a chance to really realize, oh my gosh, these clone troopers are really stormtroopers. Then there's that fantastic shot of the clones all marching, which becomes such a Star Wars moment for me.
It's a very long shot. It's about, 15 seconds or something like that. And while they were talking, there was all these bugs around them. And we had to remove every one of them. And the way to do that is to paint them by hand. You have to paint them out. So we spent weeks trying to get those bugs out of around them.
One of the problems of mixing a film is, of course, reconciling reality with what you want to hear. Anakin and Padme are sitting just a few hundred feet away from a gigantic thundering waterfall. Basically, they couldn't hear themselves having this nice little intimate conversation. So although we do our duty and we create the sound of the waterfall and it's there in the original tracks, the decision to reduce it and eventually just get rid of it is made in the final mix.
In the field, I wanted to have one scene kind of outdoors. We've been inside a lot. We know we have a lot of waterfalls on Naboo. I wanted to make a kind of super waterfall scene, have something really, really gorgeous outdoor. So we have this little picnic where Anakin brings out the uncomfortable subject of previous boyfriends, which boys have a tendency to do. And then we get into this political discussion, which allows us to get a little insight into Anakin and Palpatine's influence over Anakin and some of his thought process. Anakin realizes here that he's gone a little bit too far with her and then turns it into a joke.
The cool thing about this sequence, besides those first two shots with waterfalls, which are beautiful shots, is how we integrate these animals that are called the shacks, which we hadn't seen before. Actually, we saw them before in episode
They were
1,
tiny,
right?
yeah. They were in episode 1, but they were tiny. They were
very
just
small.
before the ground battle begins on Naboo.
Right.
George really wanted to have this action shot of Anakin right in the back of the shack, and I knew on the day in Sydney when we shot him, this was going to be one of the most difficult shots. Little did I know it was going to become probably the most difficult shot in terms of animation to making believable.
A goofy little scene where they get to roll around in the grass, which allows them to get a little bit more physically close to each other without that romantic edge. It's got a slight undercurrent of romance, but it's more of an innocent, playful friendship thing. Well, it's something also that's been left over from a long time ago, from the first trilogy, and because this was the perfect place to put it, which is on this ocean planet. It's nothing but ocean. I wanted to create in this introduction to Boba and Jango Fett a lot of tension. Obi-Wan comes in to the apartment. He knows that this is the guy he's looking for immediately. Jango knows why the Jedi is there immediately. And there's this underlying reality that is betrayed by their sort of cordial behavior to one another.